All right, guys. Now, I talked in the previous videos about setting target CPAs and, why we want to do that. Now, with this campaign, so this is a lower budget campaign, but we are using the target CPA method. And the thing is, sometimes it does take testing to try and figure out which strategy is going to work for you. So this is something I've been doing for this client to test it out. Now, when you set a target CPA, the reality is if you set it too aggressively, then your ad won't run. So like, let's say you said, all right, I want to pay $20 for a phone call. Wouldn't that be great? Then, probably what's going to happen is your ad's not going to run at all. And you'll know that because the warning you'll get will be different than this. The warning will be limited by, I think it says limited by bidding. So it has a different warning and it's orange and it says basically limited by strategy. So it tells you that basically your strategy is limiting. In this case, we're limited by budget. So as you can see in this case, I've selected a target CPA of $120, which once again is very reasonable for major cities. It's kind of average, I'd say sort of that's kind of what people are paying just at the moment. So it's, and then we're actually hitting that budget. So what that's showing us is that, okay, the budget is the limiting factor here. So if I was to increase this budget to sort of $120 a day, then that was going to get me a phone call a day instead of a phone call every other day or every few days. So this is going to depend on how you've got your campaign set up. But when you are limited by budget, whether you're doing clicks or whether you're doing conversions, then definitely increasing the budget is going to get you a higher result, if that makes sense. If it says limited by strategy then and it's orange, then that means that basically your targets are too aggressive. Like I said, with these CPA targets, if you set them too low, like even at $80, it's going to be challenging. So even at $80, like it's not going to run as much. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, it really depends what's realistic. It also depends what other people are willing to pay. So like, if you, like I said, with the $20 phone call, as amazing as that would be, the reality is your ads won't run because all your competitors are willing to pay $120 for that phone call, and as the cost of Google ads goes up. So like even from a year ago, this is up. Like even a year ago, I had this campaign running on $80 for a phone call and it was working, but that's just not happening these days. People are willing to pay more and more. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think that like when you've got a history of something that's worked, and for a lot of trade businesses, Google ad works and they know that that's getting a lot of business for them, they tend to kind of default to what's been working. And if that means spending a bit more money, they spend a bit more money. The flip side of that is I feel like a lot of people are putting their prices up too. So I do feel like with inflation and everything that's been going on, it's like the cost of trades has gone up a lot as well. So, I think people are paying more for those clicks, paying more for those calls, and they're sort of absorbing that into their business by increasing the cost, if that makes sense. So yeah, so this is looking good. So limited by budget, put the budget up. Limited by strategy, your targets are too low. Let's go to our keywords. So the other part that you'll need to get really comfortable with in terms of doing this is going through here and trying to figure out basically where we've got what's working for us and what's not. So for example, you can search through here and some of these have got a much higher click-through rate than others, as you can see. So like, and then interpreting this data, I'm going to go through that as well. So basically like the volume of so the click-through rate, like this might look really good, for example, because you've got 10%, but there's only one click, in the last whatever month. So it's not going to show us a lot. Like that's not really a real representation. If we had 10 clicks or 50 clicks and that was 10%, that would be a lot more impressive. And this is our average cost per click as well. So like you can see that these are varied. These are also costs that are going up. Whereas we've got Plumber Near Me, that click-through rate is lower, and average cost per click is sitting around about $10. And then you've got obviously different clicks. So the more clicks you have, the more relevant this click-through rate is, or the more accurate, I suppose it is. When you've only got like this also looks good, but at 4 clicks, it's not enough to be as accurate. All right, so that brings us to the negative list. So the negative list is what we don't want to be showing for each month. So these are keywords we don't want to show for. Now, on the topic of competitor keywords, I know some people are going to ask about this. thing about competitor keywords is they're extremely hit or miss. And the only evidence I've got on this is probably quite anecdotal, but this is from all the trades I've run competitor keywords for. It's 50-50. So like, or maybe it's more like 60-40, but like 60% of the time they're calling that specific company and it's like, oh, we're doing a warranty claim or something broke, we want you to come back. So something like that. So it's not really the kind of calls that you want. And 40% of the time it is someone who had maybe used that company before and needs another plumber, for example. So it does check out sometimes, but I think more often than not, there can be a lot of like warranty calls and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave that to you, whether you want to target your competitors or not. Sometimes I think some of you guys just want to do it out of spite. So like if you Google your business name, right, let's say you're Craigie Burn Plumbing, I don't know, just say you Google your name and you see other ads popping up and you know that they're targeting your keywords, and some of people go, well, I'm going to target them back. So, that's fine. Do that if you want to, but track it and make sure it is working out for you. Otherwise, if you're just getting a lot of junk calls or warranty calls, just get rid of it. So, in this kind of case, I've done that. We wanted to negative some of these competitors who we think, it's just a waste of time to target those. The other things that are really good to add to your negative list are anything to do with like Bunnings, plumbing supplies, anything to do with DIY. So DIY plumbing, DIY, like how to DIY unblock your toilet, like some of those things. Gas stoves is a big one. So if you do gas fitting, like for example, gas stoves, because a lot of those calls tend to be from certain demographic, like international students, those kind of people, and they've got some kind of little gas stove and they want someone to fix it, but they want to pay like $50 or something like that. So a lot of those you want to remove as well. So when you're going for gas fitting keywords, and gas fitting keywords are a lot cheaper than plumbing keywords, we want to remove gas stoves. And then things like trade link plumbing, trade link contact number. So anytime someone's trying to DIY something, they are going to be like a waste of money to sort of compete on those keywords. So we definitely want to build those. And we want to do this every month as well. We want to be logging in, we want to be checking like, okay, what keywords do we want to show for? What do we not want to show for? What's going to work really well. So that brings me to the location. Okay. So now in this client's case, it took us a long time to figure it out. Like initially we were doing all of Melbourne and we sort of had a conversation after a few months because they were getting a lot of phone calls and stuff like that. But, for example, I said to them like, okay, you get a lot of calls from Craigieburn. So, this campaign's quite new, so we're not going to have as much data on there. But when we did have, some much bigger campaigns running, I was like, this client's, you're getting a lot of phone calls from Craigieburn. Are these people converting, right? Because you're in this area here. And they were like, no, like none of them convert. So let's just remove them. And I was like, cool. And then we talked about the fact that, if someone's in Werribee and they go, where are you? Then, if you're on the other side of town, they're going to be really less likely to convert. So because they are spending a lower budget, that's why we are doing only those 3 council areas. Having said that, these council areas are like, that's still 1 million people. So like on a lower budget, I would definitely don't try and do all of Melbourne. It's going to be a waste of time and a waste of money. You just want to target your super local area because everyone who calls you is going to be 10 minutes away. Now, another note on this. Let's say you do emergency plumbing. Let's say you do block drains and you genuinely want to go to all of Melbourne, and especially with emergency stuff, you're going to charge a fair bit of money for that and you're happy to travel. There is a way to handle this because the first thing people are going to ask you is where you are. People are very sensitive to this. Like they're going to go, where are you? So like, for example, say I'm in Fitzroy and then I ring you and you're in Craigieburn. If I say, where are you? And you go, I'm in Craigieburn. I'm going to go, oh, it's going to take you 2 hours to get here. No, thanks. I'll call someone else and I'll hang up, right? So the best thing to say if you do want those jobs further away, regardless of what reason that is, whether you need the money, whatever, is to you ask them first. So you say to them first, hey, Sarah, sorry, what suburb are you in? So make that the absolute first question you ask them. So if you didn't catch their name, ask them their name again. And the second question is ask them what suburb they're in. So when she says, I'm in Fitzroy, you can go, cool. I'm actually just down the road on a job in Collingwood, and I'm actually just going to be finishing that in an hour. And after I'm finished that, I can pop in, right? Because that's a totally different mindset shift for that client than, oh, I'm in Craigieburn and it's going to take me over an hour to get there, because they're just going to want to call someone closer. So if you do want to travel and if you do want to get those people further away, you really have to be on the front foot about it. Ask them what suburb you're in, and you're going to have to tell them a little bit of a story about like being down the road, because that is a lot more digestible to people. As in, you're in another job down the road. Cool. It's telling me that A, you're in demand. B, you're already in the area. You can get here quick. And C, you know, other people in the area are using you. So it's kind of like works in a lot of favors. So this is only if you want to convert people far away. Otherwise, if you're going to go low budget, micro target. So don't target all of Melbourne. And the other third thing I want to mention, so this is probably more important if you're on the high budget track. So if you're on the high budget track, what a lot of people will have set up if it's a more mature campaign is they'll probably have like every suburb in Melbourne written down here, right? So like if you're going to spend a bit more money into Google Ads, you do want to do that. So instead of putting in your location all of Melbourne, you would sit there, and a little bit painful, but you would sit there and go put all the suburbs in. Now, fast track to do that, just go to ChatGPT and go, I want a list of all the postcodes in Melbourne, and you want them all in a line separated with a comma. So you ask them for that, and then when you add your new locations, you just dump that list in here, cut and paste it. The reason why we want to have each suburb listed is because we want to track like how many calls and everything and how many clicks are coming from each suburbs. We want to be tracking this. So we want to be tracking the conversions. So this at the moment for this client is only down to each council area, and because they're a low budget campaign, that's sort of fairly okay. But what we want to do and how we'd scale if they ever want to the point where they want to increase more money, increase their business, would be to add every suburb separately, and then we can see the conversion rate, the clicks and all that for each suburb. Now, what that's going to tell us is, for example, that, you know, for example, people in Baldwin are much more likely to convert and click than somebody in, I don't know, let's say Box Hill, for example, right? So it's going to give us a bit more information that's relevant. And the further step that I would like to go from there, if it is a mature campaign, is I'd actually, so let's say you said to me, Jane, I've been running ads for years and, you know, I just want to cut down my wastage and all this kind of stuff. I'd probably look at your like service log. So I'd look at the areas where you are doing work, you know, what jobs you did, what suburb that was. I'd look at all that, and then I would sort of marry it up with here. And if there were areas that you just never went to, maybe it's a bit of a rough area, low social economic area, I would actually look at that and I would probably remove those suburbs if they've historically gotten, you know, clicks but not any work. So like this is like how to fine tune things over time. The art of Google Ads is like, yeah, like I said, a lot of people could set up a campaign and run, but it's really knowing how to optimize, how to fine tune it, how to cut down wastage is really a large part of what people like myself do, is just knowing when you know, we're spending in wrong areas, knowing when we're spending on wrong keywords, cutting down wastage, and knowing when our, you know, if costs are spiraling out of control. And I think a lot of the times when you guys have done a campaign and set it up yourself, you've set up a campaign and haven't set any cost controls in there, and then you found that you spent $10,000 but you made $10,000, for example, and you know you think it doesn't work and it's not sustainable, but it is. You just need to have all the right strategies in place and the right way of managing it. So yeah, so that is really good. So here it gives you your cost per conversion. You know, it like is showing some interesting stuff here. So like it's showing that, you know, in this area, which is a more wealthy area, the cost per conversion is higher. And in this area, the cost per conversion is lower. I'm probably going to drill down into this a little bit more and find out why that is. And then in the future, probably further segment this into its own campaign and this into its own campaign and just put all those suburbs in and just really monitor what we're paying for those jobs. Because at the end of the day, it's got to work out for you as a business. So this is the optimizing part. Always check too, like a good thing to do each month is to double check that our data is all connected. You definitely don't want any of this dropping off. That will affect your campaign for sure. The other thing you want to check is that your billing property is all good. So you would go to billing, you would see what you've paid each month. Yeah, and then you would just keep an eye on your billing each month, make sure that your payment threshold hasn't been reached, make sure that your card hasn't expired, any of that kind of stuff. That's a really good thing to do each month as well. So I hope this is a good overview on how to optimize your campaign each month. It is an overview and there is a lot of tips in there, but a lot of this will come down to trial and error for you. The last thing I do want to mention in this video is also your change history. So if you're kind of thinking like, oh, okay, I can't remember what happened, or I can't remember what we did last month. We made some changes, etc. Definitely write it down. But otherwise, if you don't want to write it down, then you can log into this tab change history and you can see the changes that were made there, which is really helpful. So then you can undo something if it didn't work for you. You tried something else. Of course, like if you did want to experiment, I would always either go into an experiment campaign or set a new campaign. So your experiments you can check around here. You can click and run an experiment and you would change something minor, such as change same campaign, same ad, same content, everything, and change the bidding strategy and test clicks versus a conversions campaign, for example. Otherwise, you would set up a whole new campaign and you'd track everything from that and just go from there. But with a little bit of time and effort, you guys can definitely do this. I do think that it is going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, but if you are wanting to make your lead generation problem, consistent and you're wanting to get those phone calls, then it is something that's really worth mastering. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please post in the community and I will speak to you guys soon.